Who gives you the best advice?
I would say I've received the best advice from my mother, Mrs. Grace Aduloju. Yes, she does. They do give the best advice, even though sometimes it can be a bit persistent. But yes, my mother gives the best advice, and then it's my wife.
Okay, so what is one of the best pieces of advice your mom has given you recently?
I would say be patient with things, with life, and just whatever task you're trying to do. I don't feel that just because you're at a certain stage in your life or a certain stage in the process that you feel you need to rush because others around you may be ahead of you. Like, just take your time and things will work out in the best fashion for yourself and your situation.
That's good advice, especially now where we're in the social media age of comparison. Yeah, good job, Mom. Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Take a Space Podcast. I am your host, Leah, and I am joined today by Olo. I am not going to butcher your last name. So we met on Clubhouse, and it has been interesting between time zones, life happening, trying to schedule this. So I'm excited that we're actually here and able to have a conversation. Can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. And thank you, Leah, for allowing me to come onto your show. Yes, the time schedules have been a bit hectic, being over in London and things like that, but I'm gracious that you've allowed me to have my presence. So, everyone, I'm Olo Aduloju, British-born Nigerian, mid-30s. My background is in computer science, but I'm finally working in investment banking. And I'm not an opinionated person, someone who likes to learn, listen, and try and enjoy life and take things easy.
Hey.
Speak about interesting topics that I get told.
Thank you so much. Speaking of interesting topics, one thing that has come up a lot is this idea of porcelain relationships. And I had this conversation a little bit with a few other people offline, and I thought it'd be an interesting topic to talk about on the show because a lot of people tend to of the relationships that they have as being too delicate to bring up their true wants, their true needs, or any issues that they may have. So growing up, we knew that our parents wanted us to meet certain standards, do certain things, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely.
As we got a little bit older and moved out, right? Yep. We may come back and say, well, I don't eat this way anymore. I don't talk this way anymore. I don't do these things anymore. And your parents would act, whose child is this?
Yes. I could if I interject there, I'd say one thing that my mother likes to mention is my lack of physical church going. Yes, because ever since we were 5 years old, every Sunday, he'd pack us up, put us in a car, take us to the church, let us sing out our lovely hymns and stuff. But then as I got older, as a male, I get interested in other things. You study. I mean, you want to settle down, you want to have some fun. And unfortunately, in our case, it was soccer, church, girls, video games. I mean, somebody's going to drop.
I mean, there's only so much time in the day. I understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So in that, a lot of times when we're older, whether we do things like therapy or get around other people who tend to be where we want to be, we learn that there's going to be some pushback when it comes to the parentals having a say in our lives, or our significant others, whether, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands. There's going to be some pushback, but sometimes that pushback can feel like, if I say something, this might ruin the relationship. I'm not going to be the obedient person anymore. And now I'm more combative. And it's not that I'm being combative. I'm just standing up for what I want to do. I'm kind of standing in where I want to be, what I want to do. And I don't know how this other person is going to take it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I think that as we grow older, as we develop ourselves into adults, it's only natural to want to be your own person and to want to, you have your own, not just beliefs, but just have your own core system of ideals, beliefs. And then there's going to be some things that your parents used to do that you're not, I don't want to say you're not interested in, that it just doesn't fit with your way of life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's only natural to okay, maybe come across combatant, but I think that because they're your parents, they'll be willing to accept whatever choices you do make, because at the end of the day, you're their child, and if depending on what it is, I'm sure most parents will freak out and stop talking to their child.
Yeah, so in the situation of church, especially physically going to church. I mean, now with COVID, I'm not being around anybody right now, but there was a time where when I would talk to my parents, they would say, you need to get in somebody's church. When's the last time you've been to church? I'm like, hey, listen, I sleep in, and in my defense, I never, as an adult, I had to learn what works for me, because when I moved out, or before, when I was living with my parents, growing up, I would be the person who always fell asleep in church. I can never make it through a full church service.
You're the bad one.
Wait, like as soon as the pastor says, and the scripture for today is, I am out, and I wake up around benediction or communion, whatever it is. I'm trying to find a church I can stay awake in, but it's just not in. It's not.
Nice.
In heavier topics, like when we have conversations where I'm trying to think of a heavier topic. If a person decides that they're not going to be a punching bag anymore, or they don't like the way you talk to them, or how you handle your business, like, hey, the way you do this, you've gotten really comfortable in the relationship, and this thing needs to change. And typically, it's like,
sorry, I was going to say just how someone feels that they're giving you advice, but it comes off across as criticism.
Yes, it's like, no, I just want you to be better. Well, hey, being criticized 24/7.
Yeah.
No, that's not. It's not going to make me better. No. But I feel like a relationship, and I had to come to this conclusion because whether I'm in a romantic relationship, talking to my siblings, or with my parents, any relationship that I treat as porcelain or too delicate to handle whatever I have going on that's true to me is not a relationship worth having. And so
no. Reason why I agree with you, because literally for myself, I realized as I've got older, there's no point having to force yourself to be a certain way in front of people, because number one, apart from it being effort and it can also be stressful on yourself and your mental health. I just think that if people can't accept you for your authentic self, then maybe, I'm not saying keep them out of your life, I'm just saying give them less priority than you would give others who are more accepting and who are happy for you to be how you are, and for it to allow you to be comfortable in your space and as well as their space. Because I'll give an example, right? I'm Nigerian by background. My wife is half Ghanaian and half South African. Now, my parents being old school Nigerians, they're like, not only were they like, oh, we want you to be a doctor or an accountant or a banker, it's almost like, oh yes, we also want you to marry a Nigerian. And and within Nigeria itself, we have a lot of tribalism where you have the Yorubas, the Igbos, the Hausas, the three main different tribes, and they tend not to intermarry, but. Because my parents, when I mean they're old school, I'm saying my parents, my mom's 65, my dad's 70. So they're from like the generation where Nigeria gained independence around the 1960s. And for them, what it was, even though they both worked abroad, and what I mean, my dad spent the majority of his time working in Saudi Arabia, and then in London, and my mom spent the majority of time working in London, they still had their Nigerian roots within them, and they sort of wanted to replicate that within their own family. And and to be fair, in my mom's side, there's 8 siblings. My dad's side, there's 4. So they pretty, you know, they've got that strong sense of Nigerian community. So when it came to me dating my current wife, it's to say that I'm not one person to deny. I've never denied my girlfriend, never denied my wife as a girlfriend. You know, never. I prepared her to do the whole no. I prepared her to do that. Please, if you have any questions, please jump in anytime. Like how she felt or anything like that. But I would just say that I gave her a little bit of preparation, like in terms of how to greet my parents traditionally, which is the dobale, where for men you'd do a little bow. For women, it's kind of no. Women you bow down. For men, you kind of like act like you're gonna touch your toe with one hand. But basically, I kind of warned my wife to our current customs, and even though she's a lovely, polite, Black African woman, my parents had initial resistance because you know they had an ideal that they wanted for me personally. You know, for my family in general, but you know. Like I don't want to sound seen as a golden child. What I'm going to say is I'm the one whose trouble didn't come up too much. Like I'm the
okay.
Yeah. So I'm the quiet one. Blah blah blah. Whatever. But
you were the favorite of the family. Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm number 3 out of number 4. So I give that title to my little brother, the youngest one. You know, the youngest kids always get spoiled. But basically, my parents had ideals, and they initially had a difficult time coming to the fact that you know I wanted to have a relationship with this woman who was Ghanaian and South African and not a Nigerian woman. But we overcame it, as you can see, because we've been married over 2 years now.
Oh,
but
congratulations!
Thank you. That's a scenario. That's a situation where I don't want to say I had to overcome it. So I'd say I just basically said, look, you know, I'm an adult. All other aspects of my life are pretty in place. Like you can't we're not in the age where you're going to arrange my marriage for me or, you know, or bring me partners. Like I can go out and find someone who I get along with, whether that person's Nigerian or, you know, Black, white, or regardless of whatever background that person is. So yeah, I had to overcome that.
How did that affect your relationship? Did that kind of bring you all together or cause a rift in your relationship?
Initially, I wouldn't call it a rift, but you know, it was kind of like, they just didn't want to know initially, as in, you know, Olo has a girlfriend, cool. You know, no one's delving to say, oh, how is she? How are things going? It's just like, okay, Olo has a girlfriend. It was only when I was planning to get engaged. So I started seeing him Lucinda 2011. And then we kind of like on and off. And it was only basically, I'd say, around 2016 that in my head that I started thinking, okay, engagement, you know, time to settle down and stuff like that. And then it was literally, but then I guess it was when I was going through that phase or up until that phase, and then my parents were like, okay, this is serious, you know, like let's have a conversation. And then they just wanted to make sure that myself and my partner just understood some of the family values that they wanted us to continue. Just so it wasn't a case of you know, you're this, so like it wasn't the case of you're not from our tribe, so you're going to behave in a different way. It's kind of like these are just the family values that we just hope that you will continue as, because you know, you're both from these types of background, and we want you to, like, you know, respect your parents, elders, like keep family at core and be able to make sure that everyone kind of like still feels welcome. Because sometimes what can happen with different cultures is there can be such a culture clash in terms of how both sides are, that some family members may not feel welcome in your own home, irrespective of how close you were to them, just because they feel that the new culture coming in is so different to what they expect. Yeah, that they may not be comfortable. I mean, they may not be comfortable, and it could not be because of something you said or done to them. It's just that they themselves, because they may not know much about that new culture, they just feel uncomfortable being in that environment.
Whew. So with your now wife, your then girlfriend, fiance, how did that play in your relationship?
I mean, no, it just made us conscious of both sides, and like how family perceived each other. And it was a case of, it brought our relationship, it made us stronger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, you know, when you know that what you've chosen to, you know that the path you're taking and what you've chosen to do is right for yourself, then it's kind of like hard for people to deter you. And then if it's a relationship where both of you know that you both want the same thing, it brings you together and makes you stronger, because you're kind of like determined to prove that, no, you know what we're doing. Like, I don't want to say us
I'm an
against the world.
adult. I got
Yeah,
this.
literally, I'm an adult, so let's do this. And to be fair, like, there were no family issues, no family rifts. Like when we had our wedding, we had a kind of like traditional. We had a traditional and what we call an English wedding, where the bride's in her white dress and I was in their suit. And the traditional side, we made sure that we honoured all sides. So we had South African dancers for Zulu, Coastal South African dancers to honour my mother-in-law's side. We had we did the Ghanaian traditional to honour my father-in-law's side, and then after the wedding, the celebration, we had the Nigerian traditional, and then even with the food, we made sure we mixed and blended, and it was a lovely affair. And now
That's cool.
And the funny thing is that the parent-in-laws never really had a relationship before, whereas now, literally, they have their own WhatsApp groups with each other where they're chatting about us. But when I say chatting about, it's really teasing, saying, but babies, all the stuff that parents want.
Of course, yeah. They're like, okay, now you're married.
Yep,
so
that's it.
kids,
Clock
right?
watching, and you're just like, hey, relax. Let's take it easy. There's other battles to win. But yeah, no, that's an example of something that people can overcome. And then, but there's, like you said, there's various examples, of course, in relationships. I just gave family as one.
No, yeah, I think that in your relationship with your wife, like that could be easily seen as like, look, I want to be with you, but I know my parents have expectations for my life. And or it could be a situation of you wanting her to conform to, not just making her aware of cultural norms, or like wanting her to conform in your cultural norms, and that could cause major issues down the line of just like, well, I don't really want you autonomous. I want you to I want my parents to like you, so you need to act this way. And I think that it's good the way you two came together. It was just like, look, we're both determined to make this work. We really like each other, really love each other. And, yes, there's cultural differences, but regardless of those, we get along really well. So I feel like if our parents see us in action, then they'll understand that the cultural part of it can be carried on, because those are the morals that you both grew up with.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then, like I said, even with the cultural differences, you can basically incorporate them into your life. Like my children are going to, they're going to learn all aspects. They're going to learn the coastal South African aspect, the Ashanti Ghanaian aspect, the Yoruba Nigerian aspect, and then obviously depending on where they're born in the UK or the States, they'll basically be a melting pot of different cultures and different experiences within their lives. But we'll ensure that that they know where they're from, background wise, what they're from, and then I don't want to say what's expected of them, because I feel that that's a burden. That's too heavy a burden to place on someone. But just to be culturally aware of your background and know your history.
When you have that strong culture background to say, okay, this is where your family comes from. These are the core values of our family, and this is what you can teach your kids in their identity. But I think that it's also a good thing you said. There are expectations that are placed in relationships, parentals, obviously, romantic. Yes, absolutely. Whether they're gender norms, whether it's cultural norms, there's always going to be expectations that are placed in relationships, but having a conversation about where you can kind of adjust those expectations. Like, look,
that's true. And so as you said, and also as I say, like you said, irrespective of whatever type of relationship it is, you as a person, or both of you, or whoever you're interacting with, you basically just have to be able to just be yourselves. There's no point putting up a front, I'd say, or trying to act a certain way. Just be authentic, because irrespective of, it's harder for, let's say, an 18-year-old, 18 to 20-year-old growing up, because they're still developing themselves, they're still learning about themselves and about the world, but which is fair. But even I'd say, even then, at least the earlier you start, and just, I don't want to say not caring what people think about you, but just be able to express yourself and not being restricted, or allowing yourself to allowing you to restrict yourself because of what other people may think, then the better your relationships, the more authentic your relationships will be. And I'd say just as you're growing up and experiencing different things in life, then it's not going to be more authentic, but it will feel right to you because you'll know what you're comfortable and what you're not comfortable with.
Yes. I think, well, essentially what I'll tell people, get out of your backyard. For the love of everything good in the world, please get out of your backyard. People tend to stay in their same town, in their same state, in their same area, with their same people. And it's great that you have that root. But the tree needs to grow. So you need to, in order to know who you are, you have to experience certain things. And it's interesting when I meet people who are approaching 35, 40 years old, never been out of their state, never been to anywhere. It is like, I feel like you should travel. I mean, I'm a person who's traveled a lot. And it was the best teacher. But like you said, you don't really know how to get rid of the pageantry of the relationship because your circle is only going to let you grow so big.
Correct.
So you have to break out of that, be on your own for a little bit, be with different people for a little bit, and then you get to, know who you really, really are.
No, definitely. And I agree with you. Like travel is important, and it doesn't have to just be international travel, but like you said, just get away from your boundaries. Just like, go to, like, if it's in the States, go to another state, go from the East Coast to the West Coast. Yes. Maybe even visit some of the southern states, but we'll say that for another time. But like
they're not terrible, but it is a very because I grew up in Cali, and I lived in Texas, I lived in Virginia, I lived in North Carolina, I've been to Alabama, been to Georgia, been to Florida, been to New York. All these areas have very different cultures, which means cultural norms.
And that's what I love. And that's what I love about traveling around the States, because literally I remember, raised in London, been around Europe, like Spain, France, Italy, Germany, experienced all that, then traveled around Asia. But I think I'd say my most interesting times and most enlightening times was when I was traveling around just different states. So for example, 2009, myself and my friend Philip. Now, Philip is he's from Manchester, North England. White, he's around 5, I'll say 6 foot, but I'll say 5'10", stocky guy. He looks a bit like a small NFL player. So when Phil suggested the trip, I thought, well, you know what? Do you want to go to the States? I was like, yeah, cool. I love America. Let's go, let's fly over. What's the itinerary? He's like, okay, we'll do London to Los Angeles, Los Angeles to Kansas, Kansas to New York. And I was like, sorry, excuse me, Kansas. What's in Kansas? No, literally said, what's in Kansas? He's like, oh, my NFL team's there. I'm like, who are they? The Kansas City Chiefs. People like, or how people go on TripAdvisor these days and just get a little background information on areas. I never used to do that. But the first thing I do, we land in Kansas City. Now I get out of the airport, look to my left, look to my right. I'm seeing fields. And sorry, I'll put a little interjection there. For any of you listeners who are from Kansas City, Missouri, I have nothing but love from the city now, been there multiple times. But as a first time Black European stepping out of the airport in an American city, let's just say that when I came out, I didn't expect to see fields. Which is fine. It's culture.
You didn't do any research on Kansas. It's like watching
an episode of Rawhide. But I came out. Now, as I'm driving, I'm staring out the window, and I swear to you, all I'm seeing are fields. And first thought, and people always hate me for this, but when I was sitting in the back of that car being driven, all I could think about in my head, I was like, yo, am I in Mississippi? Like, is this what?
How did you get Mississippi?
mate, because I just kept thinking the film Mississippi Burning.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
landscapes.
Oh my gosh.
Like I was thinking to myself, and don't get me wrong, yes, your viewers can cuss me out. Like I said, I was a 2009 version of myself who had never been to the Midwest and not even done any research.
Mississippi
So I'm
Burning,
there.
that's your reference.
That's my reference. So they took us out. They took us to downtown. And to be fair, downtown Kansas City, or Casey as they like to call it, like it's nice. It's developed. It's lovely. There's loads of little barbecue spots there. You know, there's loads of bars to drink, loads of places. But obviously, me being a conscious traveler, I was very conscious of the fact there was a lack of representation of us.
Yeah.
Yes, especially during that time. Now it's better, but during that time, like, and then what I noticed as we were going up, you know, bar hopping, when we were eating and we're bar hopping, what the looks we were getting. Now, I thought to myself, it can't be because of me being black or whatever. It must be, and because obviously there's other black people who live in there who work there and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that it was the fact that they had people didn't tend to see a black guy and a white guy with funny accents, as they say, traveling together and coming to Kansas City. And the reason why I say that, I'll give you an example of an interaction. So, you know, we were out at the hip hop club in the casino, in the casino, out in hip hop. I was at the bar. Phil was at the bar ordering a couple of drinks, and I got talking to a local girl. You know, lovely girl, lovely conversation. I mean, I can say that at least I gave her focus and looked at her eyes rather than her other assets. but it's the, you know, I was, like I said, young, traveling, immature. Now, first thing she said to me, I said, "Hello, how are you?" She's like, "What?" I'm like, "Hello, how are you? My name's Olo." She's like, "Olo, what?" I'm like, "Okay, it must be the loud music." So I, you know, took it to the side, we're talking. First thing she says to me is, "Damn, you sound funny." And I'm like, "Sorry?" She's like, "Yeah, you speak funny." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, that's I'm from London." She's like, "London where? London, Ontario? No, is it London, Canada?" I'm like, "No, I'm from London, UK." London, UK. She's like, "Okay, cool, geography. Cool."
Yeah.
But my friend, your friend told my friend that you're Nigerian. I'm like, yeah, I am. What part of London? No, where in Nigeria is London? And I swear to you,
gosh.
I was like, sorry. And now I thought she was joking because me and my friends like to play practical jokes with each other. At that time, we were quite immature. So I just thought, nah, she's taking the piss. But no, she asked me again. I look over at Phil and Kevin. They're like, you know, giving thumbs up. I'm just like,
no, she doesn't know her geography, guys. We can't continue this. It's bothering
continue.
me.
No, she's a lovely girl, but we just, you know, we couldn't continue because it just felt like either I'm being pranked or I'm gonna just be like, oh my, like I didn't want to judge this Kansas City,
but you did. But you did. You were like, did I not learn geography in school?
2009 version did.
People move. We don't just stay in one state.
I did, and I'm giving that example because it's kind of like come from an outsider looking in, you're just thinking, where the hell am I? Yeah. Like what's going on in this place? Because literally, it's kind of like, wow. And don't get me wrong, the rest of the trip was. I went to the NFL stadium, brilliant time. Arrowhawk Stadium or Arrowhead, brilliant. You know, the way that everyone celebrates the tailgating and the matches themselves are wicked. Explored the rest of the city, went to some more interesting interactions because literally you notice that not many people would see that sort of I don't want to say, well, you know, I'm comfortable with my sexuality. That sort of coupling, traveling around, like white guy and a black British guy. And it wasn't just Kansas, you know, it's same in LA, same in New York, it's been same in Miami when me and my friends have traveled, like, because what it is my group of friends, because I say, yeah, maybe because growing up in London, I've always had a mixed set of friends, like black, white, Asian, both, the Chinese, Vietnamese, Taiwanese, and then obviously Indian, Pakistani stuff. So my friends have always been mixed. And when we travel, it's a mixed group. So it can come across as like a United Colours of Benton ad when we're all together. Because literally, and luckily enough, I'm never the token black guy. There's always more than one black guy when we travel, so there's no tokenism here.
Yes, but I want to make sure. Am I the only one? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Literally,
is there more than one? There's more than one. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
But I would say that the benefits of traveling, especially on my life, has just been like I said, I get to experience more things. I get to see new areas, see new parts of the world, but also I get to interact with different cultures and different types of people. So yeah. I as a person expand, and hopefully with the interactions that I have, they also get to learn something new. Because like that girl would have realized that no, Nigeria is not in London, or London's not in Nigeria. Nigeria's in Africa.
Oh, that's so sad.
Like Nigeria's in Africa.
Oh, that's so sad.
And
but that's the same. That's kind of like the same mentality of you, like being in Kansas City, Missouri, seeing fields, and your point of reference is Mississippi burning, and so it is. Yeah, it's like the same thing.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I learned from that. Because now in my head, I know that we're everywhere. You're gonna find melanin everywhere, even in places like Alaska, as your last president alluded to when he spoke about that they caught a Nigerian up there. I mean, us Nigerians, we don't know how we got there, but there's melanin everywhere.
That's, you know what? I feel like I want people to learn geography, but also it's a more humbling experience when I meet people who haven't traveled. Because at first I was terribly judgy. What do you mean you've never been on a plane?
No, seriously.
What do you mean you haven't been you've been nowhere?
Actually, no, I feel that, and I feel that does a lot more damage than it does good, because familiarity is good, but you also need to experience the unknown.
I think the familiarity brings complacency, and that's why I have an aversion to complacency, which kind of lends itself to me being on the move more than not. Okay. And so, but being content and being complacent are two things that I'm learning how to differentiate. And learning how to be content in myself is like learning how to live without the pageantry, learning how to be okay with, because I used to, until it was actually maybe a week or two ago, where I had to come to terms with imposter syndrome. Something bad's gonna happen if they think that I'm not at whatever. Yes. And I never thought about it this way, but I don't think anybody expects me to be an expert in whatever field I'm in. But if I show myself as a resourceful person, just be that resourceful person. Or if I'm showing myself to be at whatever level I am, just be at that level. There are going to be people who know more. There are going to be people who know less, and there's going to be people who want to learn from you and people who want to criticize you, regardless of whatever it is. And so for me, I like to make sure that I am learning to be content in myself and not just waiting around for the other shoe to drop. Like, I'm going to be found out. I don't know what's going to happen if people find out whatever it is that they're going to find out about. Like, it's just some weird thing. I can't even, my sister asked me.
No, I wouldn't say
like, she said, what are they going to find out? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. She was like, okay, so what do you think? Where does this imposter syndrome start? And I was like, I don't know. But doing that, but her asking those questions and like getting to the root of it helped me to see it as just something that my anxiety kind of made up so that I don't move forward. And so now it's like, oh, I'm on the other side of it.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
no.
cool. So that was like a growth thing right there. So, but I think that, you know, being in a position to learn from your familiar background, I think it's good because you want to have roots.
Yep.
But then essentially, when you want to, you know, build a legacy, whether it's through kids or a program or a community building, whatever,
Yep.
you got to kind of see how other people are doing it. Because if your community is doing the same thing they've been doing for the last 200 years,
yeah,
chances are they may be outdated. It's not, they're not really with the times.
Yeah, you know, they're stale, and you can, and plus, like you said, you made up a good point. You can always learn from others.
Yes.
Like, you can see how others are doing something, whether it's, you know, a community building project, or whether it's even, for example, a work, like you said, the self-criticism. You can learn, you can, you know, by talking to your colleagues and seeing how they approach things, that teaches
Exactly.
you. Because I'd say that, and I'd say that, especially with the imposter syndrome, it's a lot more common than people think. Like, in terms of that, because literally, and I think it's, I don't want to say it's something that's not really brought up, but I feel that something a lot of us don't know how to approach it, or similar to, you know, how you were lucky enough to go through a process like the question and answer process with your sister, which allowed you to be able to think, you know what, this isn't really like, this is small. This is something that is not going to affect me. Because
I think that it's really cool when you can have those honest conversations with your mentors. And a mentor is not necessarily a friend, because you want to be able to have
an unbiased conversation.
Yes. And a mentor should be able to, it should be a person that you hold into a higher esteem.
Yep.
So that there's a respect level there, and not necessarily a familiarity where if they check you on something, you now feel attacked, or you don't take it seriously. Because there are times when mentors need to pull your coattail and say, hey, you know, this is not the best way to go about negotiating salary, or, you know, this may not be the best job to go into if you want to level up. You need to network in this area, or what would probably be better for your skill set is X as opposed to Z. So when you have that kind of mentor, you know, you don't want to build it into a friendship. Like,
no, I mean, sorry, I'd say mentors can become friends over time.
Yes.
Because the relationship will naturally develop into that as you've opened yourself up to them. And when I mean over time, I'm not talking like in a year or two. I'm talking like, you know, if it's a long-term mentor you have, then eventually the familiarity will come, but you'd have gone through, you know, you still have the level of respect for them. Because like you said, it's someone you look up to. But it's so good, because I'm just saying that because I've got a few mentors who I've known like for years, who I see them as friends, but they can still check me. As you say, they can still be like, hey, like to give an example, I left the UK, I left London in 2014 to move to New York to start my job, to internal mobility, to start my job in the States.
Okay.
Now, before I made that decision, I spoke to a few friends, family, of course, and I spoke to a few mentors. Now, my thing was that I had always been set on working abroad, working in the States, like working in New York, getting my experience there. And you know, my friends were like, yeah, congratulations, happy for you, man, you achieved your dream, like, had to look forward to visiting you, blah, 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 blah. You know, family were like, cool, congratulations, look forward to visiting you. And I said, outside of my parents, no one really like, but, or have you thought about this? Like, and when I think to my mentors, they were happy for me, congratulating me, because it was seen as a move, like, you know, step up. But by speaking to them, I just became wary of other factors. And to give an example, you know, like, for them, relationships, or, you know, like going from being in the same city to long term across the seas, you know, or think about, okay, you're moving to this area. what does progression look like? Don't just be excited because you're moving to go and work in New York.
Right.
Make sure that what you're doing fits into your plans. And lucky I had these conversations before I accepted, but it basically just allowed me to look at the move from a higher level and see okay, by doing this, I want to do this. Does it align with what I want to do? But what I'm saying is having that unbiased people to have those conversations with allowed me to be able to look at it in that way, rather than people congratulating and saying, oh yeah, good, you're doing this, bam, bam, bam. It allowed me to basically think outside the box and review what I actually was doing and how it fitted into my life.
Yes. And it's great that you have that person who you can hold to that esteem, who you do respect their opinion of, even when they say, I'm excited that you get to have this opportunity, but let's look at past the excitement. What's the reality going to be?
Oh God, yes. And if anyone told me how the winters were in New York, especially that first winter, 2014 to 2015, I might not have survived, man, because no one ever told me about the black ice that once your foot gets through that, you're done.
Oh gosh.
Literally, I love the city, but wintertime, when it properly snows, hell no. I'm hiding in my house like a hermit. You're never seeing me. You're never seeing me on the streets.
But having someone that you can hold in that space that is going to offer you advice based on their experience, and you want to make sure that they are in. You don't want to really get a mentor who's not been where you're going.
Correct.
Because regardless of where they not regardless,
but I would say I get what you're saying. Like for me, okay, my mentors are currently in either my field or similar field. And they're at a level that I want to attain. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with having, for example, I know there's all these schemes for reverse mentors where you get, you're the mentee, you have a younger person to learn on them. That's all hip for now and all of that. But I'm saying that if you're talking about, career progression, progress in life, it's always good to get a wiser voice.
Yes.
And when it comes to career progression, even if they don't have to be in your workplace, but if they're at least in the same field and area that you're interested in, then that's a more focused mentorship or mentor relationship than having someone who's just older.
Right, because typically, even if you get someone who is essentially just older than you, they may not have explored enough opportunities that's going to allow you the flexibility to make the program or your career work for you. And so they may not have it, but you want to make sure that the person that you're choosing is going to be attentive, that they're going to be respectful, that they understand you and the significance of you moving in this direction, the baggage that you may come with, things that you have to overcome, almost like a therapist, but you want, but in that professional, right. In that professional space, you want to make sure that they have the time and attentiveness to talk to you about, hey, these are some things to look out for, especially being, I was just in the live that we did. My sister, who's in the Air Force, talked about how there are Black women who looked out for her without necessarily saying anything out loud. Where they're just like, hey, you're good. All right, come here. Let me help you with this. Or it was just kind of this unspoken rule that, we're going to fix each other's crown. We're going to make sure that, in a male dominated world, you won't have to worry about anything as long as I'm around. And a lot of the women, the Black women around her really supported her in that. And you want to make sure that your mentor has that cultural awareness to understand, especially as women or as minorities, Black people, people of color, indigenous people working in a field that may be a field dominated by a different culture, how you can be successful in that, because success is possible, but there are so many pitfalls that happen if we don't have people who are
politics
hey,
is always there.
You need to make sure that, make sure you remember this person's birthday, or make sure that you speak to this individual, or make sure that you work on these teams, because they're the ones who are going to build your brand. They're the ones who are going to help you be successful. And if you have that in a mentor, oh, absolutely, you have set yourself up for success.
And
I absolutely set yourself up for success.
Especially when it comes to subjects like building your brand, because if you don't have someone to be able to even soundboard what you think your brand is, then how will you know what your brand is? As in because one thing I've learned, especially in the working area, is that your reputation precedes you.
Yes,
and absolutely. And by having a mentor who can like look you in the eye and say, this is how I feel, you can change, or you can improve, or or just have a look at this option, that not only are they looking out for you, but they invested in you to help you become a better person.
Yes, that investment hits a little bit different when it's from somebody who cares and respects you, and knowing that you want to move forward. So whether it's professional, or if it's spiritual, or if it's like marriage or family relationships, because there are people who do mentor, husbands and wives and fathers and mothers, and helping kids to better just communicate, or to exist in this relationship, or in this life, whatever it is that you want to do. So I know, like, if I wanted to be a judge, I would probably get a judge or a lawyer who is transitioning into that, to talk to them about what their experience is. Or in finance, if I wanted to be an investor or a financial literacy coach, or if I wanted to be an entrepreneur in a certain field, it's always good to get someone who's been there. They don't have to have the same journey, but they need to at least understand where you're coming from, and the things that you had to overcome to get here. Because if you get someone who wasn't rough around the edges, and they're a trust fund baby, and just happened to get this role because their dad owns the company, then they're not really going to be, they're not going to be a good mentor. But, if you get in someone who knows how to, even though we act like we don't like it. Huh?
No, I said, if you get someone who's been around the beaten path.
Yes. You want to make sure that, because as much as we don't like it, we do have to play politics to a degree. It doesn't matter where you are. There's always going to be politics that you have to play, just to get to your end goal. Like, just make sure that whatever it is at the end of the day, you get something out of it. But that comes with being true and authentic to what it is you want, to understand that, life happens after the weekend. you gotta have like a plan. Like, what do you want to do in the next year? You don't have to have the next 5 years plan, but if you have the next year plan, then you know whether or not this next step is going to make sense to you.
No, I get it. I get, but I'd also say, you could also ask a question that, can you be your authentic self while playing the politics?
Yeah, typically for me, because for me, I don't necessarily see it as, for me, when I play politics, it's more about strategic manipulation.
Okay. That's an interesting one.
It's strategic market manipulation, because if your goal is to get promoted, right, you want to make sure that your manager and or supervisor would give you good marks, or a rec letter if need be, right? So you want to make sure that you show that you are a team player, that you do the work, you go above and beyond, etc. Right? So that's how I play my politics, and it's when you have to be the fake, like, if I do this, can you do this? If I do this, can you do? I don't do that. I don't.
Favor for favor. Nope,
Yeah, the quid
not
pro
at
quo.
all.
I don't get into that because then I'm always owing somebody, or I'm like, okay, when are they gonna call
To
me and say,
collect.
hey, I need you to take care of something? And I'm like, but I don't want to.
Yep, yep, yep. No, no, I do agree with you. And literally, it's if you, and that's one thing that a mentor can prepare you for, because, like I said, because you've shown your authentic self to your mentor, they can help guide you when you're having to play the politics, and at least they can be an advocate for you as well.
Yeah, and that, see, learning how to advocate for yourself, learning how to have agency in whatever aspect of life, personal,
Hmm.
professional, whatever, you want to make sure that you can speak to, you may not know exactly what it is you need, but you can
Yeah.
speak to where you are right now and where you're trying to get to. And
Hmm.
your mentor can say, okay, this is where you are, this is where you need to be, and these are some of the things that you may need to get to
Yeah.
that point. But thank you so much for being on the show today. I greatly,
No, thank
greatly,
you.
greatly appreciate you.
No, no, no.
Where can
Thank you
people
so much.
find you?
Oh, so I can be found on my Instagram, which is literally first three letters OLOADU. That's for my Instagram, my Twitter, and if you want to look at my photography, as boring as it might be, it's OLOCOPICS. But yeah, otherwise you'll see me on Clubhouse talking about diverse different topics, and just having a laugh and chilling out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. And hopefully, we'll be able to have you back for the live. After the show airs, we'll be live on Facebook on Thursday at 9 p.m. Central Time for about an hour or so and kind of recap the show, talk about different topics and things of that nature. Um, Please be sure to follow us at Take Up Space Pod. It's Take Up Space POD on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much to Olo for being here today. It's been a great, 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 great conversation.
Leah,
And we'll
it's
see
been a
y'all at the
pleasure.
live.
Cool. Take care.